Thanks for tuning in to the news segment from the Roll for Crit podcast, a podcast all about tabletop games released weekly on Wednesdays. This week, we've got a content creator who not only makes YouTube videos, he streams games, writes articles, as well as being on the committee for the American Tabletop Awards. Our guest this week was Ruel Gaviola. So we hope you're excited to find out what's been happening in the world of tabletop games. You can listen now.
Okay, we've got some interesting news stories this week, some real industry shakeups, as I like to say, concerning the business end of the board game world. Asmodee is at it again. Asmodee, of course, is the parent company of many large and small publishers in the board game world. They've got Fantasy Flight, they've got Z-Man, they've got Catan. They have a lot of board games that people know are owned by the parent company of Asmodee, and they are now looking to get their mitts on Exploding Kittens. So actually, Asmodee already had a distribution deal with Exploding Kittens, which, if anyone doesn't know, is a pretty popular casual party card game that was created by, in part, by the Oatmeal webcomic creators. And now they have actually invested in the owning company so that they are partial owners of Exploding Kittens. Technically, the deal doesn't fully go through until the end of the month, and they didn't just buy the whole thing outright, but they did say that they look to have a lot more influence going forward into how this game is sold and perhaps even the design elements, whether that be for expansions or alternate versions or who knows what going forward. Ruel, what do you think? It's another Asmodee acquisition. How does Exploding Kittens land in your board game world? And is this something that you think, is this just another, is it even news anymore when Asmodee starts to acquire something?
It's funny. That's what I was thinking. The tentacles of Asmodee continue to reach out throughout the industry. And I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even know that they were part owners of Exploding Kittens to begin with. But it makes sense. And I mean, the strong or the big keep getting bigger. I mean, you can see at Exploding Kittens at Target, at all these, big box stores now. And even though it's not really a game that makes it to the table much with my gaming group, it's an important game because it gets people into the hobby.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I mean, it's I think it's it's easy for hardcore gamers to laugh and sneeze at these these sorts of games, but you
Right.
gotta have them. You gotta have your Munchkins. You gotta have your Exploding Kittens if you want to get people into the other stuff.
I want to
Yeah,
point out,
absolutely.
and I want to double check this, but I'm pretty sure the company is also called Exploding Kittens. So this isn't just about the
Okay.
game; it's also like
Yes,
Throw Burrito.
Oh.
I'm totally blanking on all the other ones.
that's true. I should have clarified. They
Yeah.
also recently got Happy Salmon from North Star Games is now under the Exploding Kittens
wow.
umbrella. So yes, that is
Wow.
true. It is there are more things at stake here. And it's clearly Asmodee has an eye at this point for they can see when something is very popular and they know when it's
Right.
valuable. And we also still are in the dark. We had heard rumors recently that Asmodee is up for sale. So they may
Right.
be being bought by someone and they're still buying stuff. So it's like the train really never stops.
My guess is, I assume it hasn't sold yet. I feel like we'd hear about it in some ways.
Yeah, I think
For what was it, 2 billion euros?
that was the rumored
Oh my gosh.
The
price.
rumored, yeah. So my guess is, I mean, like you said before, this is one of those games, like you just see it in Targets and your major shopping stores a lot.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're probably, if it hadn't sold, like, let's get the stuff that most people see. Because regardless of even how often these games hit our table, I feel it's, if they're stocking at those kinds of places, because it sells. And then if Asmodee is able to get influence on that, remember, they don't own it yet, but influence, it makes their package look more enticing to purchase for whoever has 2 billion lying around.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we also maybe see. It seems like Asmodee is starting to like to do more crossover stuff. Are we going to see Pandemic Exploding Kittens or something? Or I don't know. The
Exploding Happy Salmons, yeah,
yeah, Exploding Kittens, the miniatures game from, or or an LCG from Fantasy Flight or something. I don't know.
Mysterium Kittens edition.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, figure out how did this kitten get exploded? Ghost has to tell you. All kinds of interesting possibilities there. But we'll see how it goes. As I feel like it really does become repetitive sometimes with these Asmodee stories. Where usually the ending sentiment is just like, yeah, it's probably bad, but you probably also won't notice any difference. So I don't know.
Weirdly enough, I think it fits well with the game of Exploding Kittens because it's really not that they just got a game because we know they're going to keep going. The pessimist in me is just knowing that it could be a time bomb because I feel the way these things work is they keep selling it for a higher price until the best thing for them to do is to piecemeal it. And that's when you have to worry, like, are they going to reprint this game again? Is it going to be under someone else? And that's when we need to all like scramble.
Right.
You're saying you think someone might not buy them outright, but they'll just sell parts of them out to different people.
I just assume eventually. Mostly that's just my own. I don't think, and every business seems to think otherwise. I don't think you can keep growing. Like, I just think that comes a point, and then that usually is the best way to, as they would say, cover your losses. Granted, I think having such a fantastic game collection is not a loss, but
Right. It's interesting too because it ties into this whole like, when's this board game bubble gonna burst, right? And it hasn't yet, but there's got to be a certain point where it's like, like you said, you're just gonna have to start piecemealing this because there's no more room for growth. Maybe I really don't know. It's really interesting.
Frankly, I'm impressed it didn't burst now with everyone with all the shipping issues.
Right.
Board games are still like, no, we'll find a way. We'll do it. I'm like, okay. I guess you could still fit your giant miniature boxes over here somehow.
Yeah, I feel like it's like 2 or 3 years ago we were talking about the potential of a board game bubble when like Kickstarter really started taking off, and it hasn't yet to. It just keeps going. Everything still seems to grow.
Now that is where I think Asmodee should go next. Kickstarter. Cut out the middleman. You're now in charge of.
I'm surprised, honestly, they don't have their own. Just like start the Asmodee founder or something. Why not? But I guess they don't want to do that just yet. They're good with where they are. Well, let's stick on this subject.
It wouldn't.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say it wouldn't surprise me if they did eventually. It feels like that's the next move, right?
It could be. I mean, Hasbro basically has their own like crowdfunding thing, right? And
that's right.
I know in video games, Double Fine kind of started their own. Like, it's not unheard of, and they certainly have. Like, if nothing else, basically Kickstarter, we all know at this point, is a marketing tool to some, at least for bigger companies to some extent. And why it wouldn't hurt them, even if they know it's going to get produced anyway. They just get like a 60-30 day window to tell people about the game that they're going to make.
Right.
It could be a good angle for them. Well, Asmodee, if you're listening, you can have that one for free.
No. We'll sell for on the cheap. Nothing close to their $2 billion. Just I think a few million for each of us. I think that's fair.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Euros, right?
Euros, yeah, definitely euros.
Okay. So that's not the only story of acquisition this week. We also have a word of Greater Than Games, the publisher behind Sentinels of the Multiverse and other titles, Spirit Island. That's them, right? Spirit Island? They did that.
Yep.
And a bunch of other games. Thanks for the confirmation. I get insecure sometimes. And they have announced that they have been outright acquired by the Flat River Group, who they had partnered with previously. The Flat River Group essentially is an e-commerce company that works with various businesses to help them manufacture and distribute and sell their products. They do work with board game publishers. They also have, at least according to their website, worked with people like Amazon, Target, Walmart, big time people. And now they officially own Greater Than Games. The entire staff of Greater Than Games is intact, according to the blog post on their website. It sounds like creatively, not much should change. This is just going to be more for their technical side of things. They are going to be holding a little Ask Me Anything type thing later this week, so people may be able to get more details during that presentation. But this strikes me as a little different from the Asmodee story, because usually Asmodee is out there buying up the big dogs, and Greater Than Games feels like a big dog in our world, but I think in the scheme of things outside of the board game hobby, they're not nearly as well known a brand name. So I don't know. What do you think, Ruel, about this particular acquisition? Does it sound like something that is a positive thing, or does it worry you at all to see an independent company now go under with another larger conglomerate?
I think I see it as a positive thing. Mainly because, as you were saying, and as the story goes, they're still going to maintain creative control over everything, and it's a way to work together and improve the technical side of things. And one thing I got to say is, like, I don't know what's going on, what's in the water over there in Missouri, but they've got a lot of great game companies over there. They've got Greater Than Games, Stonemeyer, Dice Hate Me, Genius Games, Gray Fox, like. What is happening over there? It's awesome.
Yeah,
There
heck,
is a
Missouri.
specific rule that there are no taxes you have to pay if you include dice in your product. That must be it.
If not, it should be.
Yeah, it's a very dice-friendly state, apparently. But
as we all know, the state was founded on its dice mines back in the day.
It's interesting. I feel like there's these little pockets in the U.S. where I know, like in Seattle, there's a good amount of board game activity, and then like even where Will and I are in the New Jersey, New York is really big for like Magic. I think.
Right.
Trading cards around here. I always hear, like, when it comes to contests, like, oh, you should be fine unless you're in the tri-state area. Then you better know the meta then.
So maybe Missouri can be the new the Silicon Valley of board game developers.
Right.
Will,
I imagine that it's curious, but I do know that Greater Than Games does a lot of Kickstarters, and at least one I know of has had some issues. I don't know if it's because of shipping and stuff, but by partnering with a company like this could be a way where they could be more confident in that. Like, they could discuss, like, can we guarantee to get Sentinels of the Multiverse living card game out by December? And they could be like, yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it should help a lot with that. At worst, I think maybe hard, like a little bit harder to get some games because of maybe some weird exclusive deals, but it's not nearly, at least in my head, because it's a distribution company, it's not nearly something to be worried about. Like, I do not think this will affect the quality of game.
Right. Yeah. And just the fact that, I mean, instead of like, you're just talking about those shipping issues again, right? So if you're just like a small independent company by yourself, you're most likely, in big trouble when it comes to the shipping issues. But if you're working together, partnering with other companies, and you're with, Flat River Group, hopefully that'll, help you with those issues,
What I'm curious about is I went to their site just to see what it was like, and they have like retail partners. They list all the major stores. Does this mean we're going to see a lot more Greater Than Games in places like Target now? Because at least I cannot picture them in my head. I picture like Ravensburger, Exploding Kittens and stuff.
I bet they're at Barnes and Noble, but Barnes and Noble is pretty good. They have a bigger selection.
They do. Yeah, they have a pretty solid, usually, at least.
Oh yeah, much more than Target. Like I'm still shocked that I saw, like, Red Rising at Target recently. I was like, wow.
Yeah,
I mean, Wingspan was really cool. Seeing that in Target was amazing too. But yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah, I will say Target has been upping it too. It's not like they have been, but there's always, of course, I believe, room for more.
Right. Agreed.
More growth, as we said. Yeah, that would be cool to see Greater Than Games spread out to more places. And yeah, as a good point you made, Ruel, about like right now, that maybe for them, this might have been really essential to make sure they could get all their shipping and everything in line. And maybe we'll see more partnerships like this as we kind of see how different companies are trying to pivot and adapt to the new status we live in, which seems to be not going away really anytime soon.
Yeah.
It's like, it's right now it's like, oh, it's like now only $10,000 more than for a crate than it used to be, instead of 25,000. It's like really good.
I'm going to be excited for the Uline Leader Games partnership
There
coming
you
down in
go.
the future.
FedEx will acquire somebody. I don't know. Okay.
Wizards of UPS.
Now you've done it. Well, we'll bring Wizards of the Coast in here next, and we mentioned Magic a little earlier. Next story has to do with Magic the Gathering, and specifically Magic Gathering Arena, their digital version of Magic. And they are introducing a brand new mode to the game called Alchemy, which shakes things up a little bit. Will, I know you know more about this stuff than I do, so could you just jump in here and explain
Sure.
to me exactly what alchemy mode is and why it's scary, maybe?
So, the original Magic the Gathering, there's plenty of weird formats because this game's been on for so long. And the common one, the one that Arena mostly uses, is Standard, which uses the most recent sets. Now, I want to say 6 months ago or something, very recent, they made a special Arena-only set of cards that had things that would only work on a digital client. It'd be like, instead of a card reading like find a specific name card, it'd be like choose from this spell book, and the spell book is a special list you have to digitally find, and like the computer takes care of everything. So Alchemy is now pretty much a new format where they're not only going to add more cards like that, so cards that would only make sense in a digital cannot be printed in paper, but they're going to actually take some of the older cards that we've known that may be either really good or really bad and actually change them. So when you used to know if a card was named Counterspell, for example, it always worked the same regardless of the art, regardless of the set it printed. Now in Alchemy, that might cost 2 more. So that's the idea behind Alchemy. It is now going like, it's really pushing its digital side
Got it.
of what it can get, what it can mess with.
Yeah, which, as far as I understand it, some Magic players aren't thrilled about because there's, they whatever their idea of the game is, or the sanctity of wanting to collect all the cards, or wanting to keep things consistent between formats, or I'm sure you will tell me exactly what all that works, how all that works, and what people think. But first, Ruel, are you a Magic player at all? Does any of this mean anything to you?
Well, I'm not a Magic player. I've played the game a few times back in the day, but it was never really my jam. But over the pandemic, a lot of the guys I used to game with really got into it, and some of them for the first time got into Magic, online. Others like rediscovered the game. So this is really interesting. I'm interested to see how my buddies react to this, because they just started getting, we started getting together now that everyone's vaccinated and it's a little safer. We're starting to have in-person gaming events again, and there's a small group of us that have broken off into meeting on other nights just to play Magic. So it's really cool to see that some of these new variations of the game have like sort of rekindled the interest for some of the players, and I may dip my toes into it as well. I don't know right now, but I'm always willing to give a game a try. So why not?
Be very careful when you say that around me. I'm going to take out my commander decks then.
Yeah. Don't toy with him. He'll do it.
Nice.
Personally, I dabbled a little in Hearthstone when it came out, and one of the things that I did really like about Hearthstone was that because it's not tied to an actual physical game, they were able to really just make things that you couldn't really do with real cards, or would be very tedious to find a way to make them work in real life. So I kind of like those sorts of things. So to me, this sounds like it could be a cool new mode of the game. Will, as someone who's more steeped in this stuff, although I don't think as much the digital version, where do you stand on it?
I'm not as big of a fan, but I feel less because of what they're doing and more of, I wasn't a fan, as you said, of the digital client to begin with. It it is in essence, this is designed as a free to play game. You don't need to put in any amount of money, but it only has newer sets in there. My favorite format is Eternal, which means all the cards are available. And this just seems like after those digitally exclusive cards, this just seems like the natural order to go with. Like, we're going to go all in on this digital client. And this is now, we are officially diverging from Paper Magic. Arena used to be like, oh, it's where you play Magic, but digitally. This feels much more akin to saying almost, I'm trying to, like playing a tabletop version of Bloodborne versus the video game Bloodborne. They are different.
Yeah.
And there are some problems that are annoying. One of the things Magic did really well is, and this has to do also with the digital exclusive, if I played a card, I'm going to scroll through this fun little list. A Red Dragon.
Yeah,
D&D.
Red Dragon.
What I read on the card, like, sure, it could have some weird interactions and people always try to break the game, but everything you need to know is on the card. A lot of these now, because they take advantage of the client, will say something like, draft from Armed Scavenger's Spellbook. I have no idea what those are now. Like, I can't just read the card. The other weird thing is, which Magic did really well, and other games too, I think, or this is, if we're playing something, for example, Pokemon, Digimon, those, if I say, oh, this Pikachu card is good, you don't know which one because they printed like 20 different cards named Pikachu that all have different abilities, which is just, that's how they work. With Magic, if I said Omnith does not change. Now you have to worry about what time and date I meant by that because of the alchemy mode. That said, every game has its hiccups. That's what we do when we all look at games. And for this to be in the digital client, it's not removing the standard. If you still want to play classic Magic, but digitally, it still has its standard mode. This is at least them. It's a new game, and I get it. I just wish, of course, it was like Magic Alchemy, $60 game, one-time purchase, and you can get all the cards in there, not the free-to-play model. But that's my own personality.
I'm sure someday they'll do that.
No, they won't. Why would they?
You're right. They're not going to do it. But it is a separate mode, so that's worth noting. If you don't like it, I guess you can just ignore it for now, at least. But maybe the fear is that it'll become so popular they expand.
I mean, if it becomes popular, then that's fine. That means people are enjoying that mode. Right. I still have my paper copy. That's the thing. It's not the paper version. I think won't go away. I would be shocked. I mean, it could, hypothetically, if every Magic player decided Arena was the way to play, then yes, paper Magic could go away. But I think there's too much money in paper Magic that I think they're just going to go their own separate paths. As far as I know, they've done most of, like, if you get some of the cards that are updated and changed, I don't think it takes away from your collection, your digital collection. So it's just them going all in on a new format that is very weird to Magic players. But hopefully at the very least, it's something that at worst you can just ignore.
Yeah. Well, it launches pretty soon, I think at the end of this week. So if you're someone who plays Magic Arena, give it a shot and we'll see how it goes. That is free to play, right? Other than, the microtransaction, but you can download it and try it for free, right?
Magic yes, like you can, like, that's what free to play in the sense, like you can play games, you can even earn.
We all know what free to play means these days. But yeah, anyway, so we'll see how the alchemy mode goes. One last story real quick. This involves the classic tabletop game Carcassonne. Now, this game came out in 2000, tile laying game. You're putting down tiles and meeples and scoring little regions and things like that. And in 2014, they had a redesign where they redid all the art. They started re-releasing expansions and things with this new art style. There also was a 20th anniversary edition just not too long ago, which kind of tweaked the art again. And now it seems there's another slightly different version of Carcassonne that is coming. At least it has gone on sale in a couple of other countries, France and Greece, and it seems like will be coming here. So there is a new big box version of Carcassonne, which will include the base plus some expansions, as well as it looks like a new standalone version of the core game. And the art seems to be very similar to other recent versions of the games, but a little bit tweaked, a little bit different, maybe with some things changed, artwork missing or new artwork added on depending on which tile you're looking at. I believe all of these things are compatible, but depending on how you play or how many different versions you have, the art may look inconsistent as you play the game. I just wonder what is going on, Ruel. How many versions of Carcassonne do you have, and why do we think this is? Why do they redo this game so many times? What am I missing?
Right? I was wondering the same thing. Was as I looked at the article and I looked at the pictures. Aside from the box cover, which I do like the box cover art. I think it's neat how they incorporated like the tiles and stuff in the landscape here. But the tiles themselves, they look really similar to me, and I'm not sure why they. I mean, you get a game. I guess you want to give it a fresh coat of paint every couple of years, maybe. But I own the Rio Grande edition of Carcassonne. I still have that one, and it's been fine for all these years. I also own the Star Wars edition, which I absolutely love. It was a prized possession of mine. It was I got to visit Japan a few years ago for the first time, and we found a game store out there which had a copy, and I bought it immediately, and I still love that game. But as far as I don't know why do they keep reprinting and adding art. I think it's just one of those things. Hey, you have this title that's been around for 20 years. Every now and then you want to freshen it up. Why not?
Yeah. I definitely understood the first time because, Catan, I mean, sorry, not Catan, Carcassonne, both of them sort of have that kind of art style it's of its time. It definitely it looks like a dry Euro game when I think you could definitely market Carcassonne more as like a fun modern family game, which it is still, or still at least plays like one essentially. I don't know. What do you think, Will? You want to go in on this new version of Carcassonne, or?
I don't think I'll be buying it, but I definitely agree that the art gives it more of a modern, I think, look. And not only that, it's sort of like the fact it shows the mechanics and stuff. It's like, oh, what's this? They're doing something on the table, like coming to life. The one thing in the article I was curious about, just because I know the game, but I don't know the history of it, that they specified this is French medieval landscape. What would Italian medieval landscape look like?
Well, isn't Carcassonne a French city?
Right?
Is that, I was just like,
the region.
Huh.
Yeah, I think that's
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Just like that's a game.
Yeah, I think it's on our Board Game World Tour shirt. Available now at rollforcrit.com.
It is a little weird especially this is one of those things where a game that has how many expansions of those little boxes?
77, I think. It's got
that sounds about right.
And maybe the idea is we're going to do this, and then we're also going to, for now, I mean, yes, there's the pessimistic, we're going to make you buy, a newer version. But hopefully they can condense those two. Just for the sake of tracking them. I mean, we talked about, I can't remember. We were talking about Star Realms last episode, and just how I was like, I can't keep track of this. This is like as hard as keeping track of the story of Kingdom Hearts. There's too much stuff going on.
Yeah, that's what it is for me. It's just confusing. If you're someone new to Carcassonne, well, probably maybe you're a more casual gamer. You just buy what's on the shelf, and maybe you're not as concerned. But for some people, you're looking at this like, which versions should I buy? And if I do buy this version, are there expansions that might not work or like won't look as good? Especially if you're, a lot of gamers like to have their collections looking consistent. So if you have like one version of the artwork from 2000 and one from 2014 and then a new one, that could bug some people, including me.
Yeah. Right. And I'm wondering too, I mean, I'm assuming like all the roads and stuff like line up throughout the versions. Like I've never actually mixed or matched tiles from different versions. Like, do they actually line up to each other? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone complain about that. I think they've been good about on that front, but I don't know from personal experience. It's something you got to worry about at least.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the news we've got for you this week.
You have reached the end of the video, but before you go, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and maybe try to help us out on Patreon if you can. If you want to hear more from us, we've also got a podcast. This is released weekly, and there'll be links down below for wherever you want to listen to podcasts.